What's good, everybody? I hope everybody's doing well. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, like the video, yada, yada, yada. Subscribe, share, all that. So I was asked a question to give my opinion about the difference between femininity and being a pushover. So I thought it was a good question. And the reason I thought it was a good question because I've heard other people say that uh, if a man who's used to being with overly aggressive, dominant type women, the moment that he gets with, well, not the moment, but if he gets with someone who's more female, more feminine presenting, then he will have a hard time and take advantage of her, abuse her, etc. So I want to address that. I want to address a couple of those issues. So I mean, I started with that one. So let me follow up with that and just say, listen, if a guy can't handle your level of femininity, that's his problem, his issue, and something that he has to work on and fix. If he's been around masculine, dominant type of women his whole life, and he has inherited or developed a trait that says I have to try to one up my woman, or I have to be combative with my woman, then he needs some type of healing from that type of situation. If he's going to be with a more feminine presenting woman, and if he can't deal with that, then you as a woman have to recognize that and say, okay, listen, I don't need you to be taking advantage of me and trying to be overly dominant, right? I do think that there's one thing about being masculine, and I think there's a definite difference between leadership, headship, and narcissism, and dominance, and toxicity, and just aggressive, overly assertive behavior. I mean, that's not, you don't have to walk around doing that type of stuff all the time, 24 hours a day. You wake up in the morning, I gotta present myself as a masculine dude, my woman could be in her place. And if a guy's not ready for that, then he's not ready for that. That's on him. That's on him. And there's work that has to be done, in particular within our community. But there's work that has to be done in order to get off and cast off those different types of qualities, feminine qualities. So I'm going to put a couple of definitions. I just kind of Googled this, right? So this is obviously not going to be any type of googly, overly scholarly type of review, but just to kind of give it some general definitions as to what we're talking about. Now, one of the reasons I don't like the definitions is because it talks about long hair and things like that. I personally don't mind a woman with short hair. That's me personally. And you looked at Holly Berry from the 1990s, Demi Moore when she cut her hair off, and just other ladies, in magazines and stuff. I don't think those little type bob type looks or whatever those hairstyles are called. I'm not a hairstylist. I don't know. Whatever they're called, I don't particularly mind that. So, I know that, some people do say that you know, girls look like little boys when they cut their hairs off, So, whatever. It doesn't turn me off in the least. What does turn me off, me in particular, and as the definitions give, is the actions, the behaviors. That's what turns me off personally. I don't hang around dominant women or those who try to one up you, those who try to emasculate you, those who don't fit the feminine, friendly, cooperative, sweet, feminine, docile, quiet, demure, type of vibe. I don't rock with those types of people. I mean, you're fine to be friends with, but I mean, I certainly am not attracted to that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So, but that's me. So if you do present that, well, let me also go down this road here, right? So, I recognize, and I actually try to take what people say into account. So if you're saying to me, listen, I grew up in a household that the man was absent, was very much matriarchy led, grandmothers, aunts, and the matriarchy is the female headship. I'm not talking about government. I'm gonna get in my comment section talking about that. Ridiculous. Not talking about governments or governmental systems. Talking about the headship of a family. Who, where are we gonna spend Thanksgiving? Who's gonna make this? Who's making funeral arrangements? Who's the boss? Who do we go to for counsel? Who do we get money from if we need to get money? Oh, loan money and all that, borrow money. Right? Who's leading the family? So that could be a matriarchy or it can be a gynarchy. Now the difference in between those two is the women, the gynarchy or gynocracy is when all the women are in charge. Technically, not only are hyenas, and I'm not certainly no animal expert. I read a lot, but I don't, I don't want to, don't, if you're a zoologist, biologist, don't get it here correcting me and all that. So the lowest, in hyenas, the lowest ranking female is still above the highest ranking male. So no, in that dynamic, so they're all it's a gynocracy. So if you're breeding your ladies to be leaders, to be headship, and to control the family, and then if and when they get into any type of romantic relationship, they think that they should head those families, then that is a gynocracy. So, and just because you're a woman, you feel as if you're going to lead. So, and listen, everybody's going to be different. I'm not going down that in this video, but that's just what it is. So you got to, and if you're going to do that, then you got to make sure that your man is in that way. But if you're a man, and if you grew up in that, let me just continue on with that. If you grew up in that type of environment where the women were in charge, whether it's your grandmother or your aunts or your mother, and they were in charge and they made the decisions, and you therefore have developed a mindset that says that I need to be in charge of my relationship, and you got to get with a man who feels that it's okay for you to be in charge of your relationship. So I think that's what that is. So if you were like that, if you came from that type of environment, then you present with different masculine traits, then it may be more difficult for you to take those off and for you to quote unquote rest in your femininity when you're not at work. I don't know how much I believe in all that. I'll just take you for your word. I don't know how much I believe in all that. Although I have met some very feminine women. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say I met some very feminine presenting women as bosses, out talking at work and whatever. But I don't know what they were like when they got home. I can't tell you that. So, I don't know. I don't know. So I wonder how that dynamic really works. So, and I don't know what my exes were like when they were at their jobs. I don't know. I know when they were like when they were in my house. So, take that for what it's worth. So, I would say that just like masculinity is a performance, it really is. I mean, and I'm not saying it's always, and you should always be acting. What I'm saying is that sometimes you have to develop these types of qualities. If you are a young boy and you're always easily excited, right, and right, and what you needed to be around to correct that easily excitable running around with, it's chicken, like a chicken with your head cut off, is you need to be around strong, dominant males who told you to relax, sit down, chill out, hold on a second before we act, stop, whatever's whatever, right? That's what you need. That's what you need. You need somebody to tell you to calm down, hold on a second, hold on. We're gonna wait here. When in the PD, right? When you're a young guy in the PD, at least for me, and I know other guys too. So there was a situation. I remember the time I was in a 2-man car with this other guy, right? And like other units were calling out like a foot chase, and we were in the area, right? So I'm like, oh, let's go. I'm like, he's like, wait a minute, just chill out, And he shut off the lights. And next thing you know, sure enough, the dude ran by us. Sure enough, the dude ran by us. So of course I'm the young dude. I had to get out and chase him. but it actually taught me something. It said, okay, chill out, relax. You get some seniority, get some wisdom and all that, right? So then I was training somebody, and almost the same thing happened. He's like, there was a big chase going on. He's like, oh man, they're right there. Chill out. Hold on. I whipped the car around, turned off the lights because we work midnights. Dude ran right by us. I'm like, go get him. so, so you have to really kind of learn that type of skill, and that's just obviously in that type of job. And I'm sure it's the same thing in every job where time and experience will teach you how to react and act in certain situations. And so the same thing has to happen as a male performance as far as becoming a matriarch, being stoic, being thoughtful, uh, thinking before you act, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm saying that I think that femininity can also be the same thing. So you may have learned different traits along the way, but I think that you can unlearn them with practice. I think that this, I don't know much about the femininity coach type of thing, but I think if you work on anything, I gotta believe that you work on anything that you can overcome. You can practice. You can get better. You can move up. You can change. And so I believe that. I'll stand by that, and I'll rock with that. So you know, so that's what I would have to say. So I think that number one, first thing is you have to change. Well, number one, I said is that if you are being abused in any type of way, it's not your fault because you're being feminine, and don't retreat. Let me finish my thought. If you are being abused, it's not your fault. Remove yourself from the abuse. Number two is if you are raised in a certain way, you can change the way that you were going. You just have to be very mindful and put in practice and put in work. If you're raised in a certain type of way, as far as being masculine and more masculine, and now you want to be this way, and you start and you engage with somebody who is not themselves centered and doesn't know how to appreciate you in your type new way, then I would say remove yourself from them rather than reverting back to your old ways, right? And that's what I think a lot of guys are afraid of, that it is simply a performance. In fact, there was a lady who did a there was a lady, I did this on my other show. I can't remember the name of the paper, but she it was a lady. She's a PhD from University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and she wrote a paper about ladies putting being the pick me performance, and she said that it was a performance. And I did a review on my other channel. She did it, and it was a performance that ladies were putting on, that they didn't really mean it, the things that they were saying. They didn't really mean to be or present this way in an ordinary life, but they were only putting on a performance. I think that there probably is some merit to some ladies saying that, or to some men saying, listen, I really want a real woman. I don't want a performance. I really want a woman who is this way. Well, nobody is a certain way. We're all kind of born, for lack of better terminology, with a blank slate. You have to be trained to be whatever you can be. And so, and then there's a whole reward system and all this kind of stuff. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm kind of going through this whole thing. So so you can change. You can become more feminine, and you don't have to deal with or tolerate anybody who's going to abuse you. Whether you grew up in that way or whether you're willing to change to be that way, don't tolerate any type of abuse. So when does it become being a pushover? I think that that's a difficult balance, and one that I am not going to try to tell a woman how to be. From a woman's experience how you are treated in the workplace. As I said, I've had bosses who I thought presented very feminine, and I noted that. I'm talking about not in the police department, not in the police department. I've had bosses when I worked at a hotel and when I worked at worked at a fast food chain restaurant, and at a hotel, the fast food chain restaurant, and in a bank that I worked at. Those are probably the three major jobs I had when I was a teenager and up. And I thought that they were. I didn't look at them and say, "Oh man, here's this butch lady, whatever's what they're telling me what to do." I didn't think of that. Again, I don't know what that was like when they went home and when they with their families. I don't know what that looked like. I defer to the ladies out there, to your experience about how you are are in the workplace. Are you a boss? Are you a manager? Are you in the C-suite? How are you in the courtroom? I defer to you, and I don't know how that would be. But I would say, from my experience, when looking at people like that, and I think that it can be a difficult balance. And I've seen lawyers. I had to when I was particularly when I was part of the as a police department, right? We're dealing with lawyers all the time, talking to them on the phone, getting ready for prosecutions and things like that. I had to deal with our corporation counsel at our town or our city, right? Getting ready for lawsuits and things like that. So, they had to have a certain exterior. I don't know if that was tiring, taxing, put them out of their character. I don't know. That would be up for you all to tell me. But I think that and I do think it's true that in order to get things done in this quote unquote man's world, although that's another topic for another time, that there are certain characteristics, certain traits that get more attention and get more things done. I think that that's just the way that it is. So when is it crossing the line to being a pushover? Well, I mean, cooperation is part of it, but you can't cooperate in the workplace all the time. You have to stand up for yourself, right? There's research that says that one of the reasons that ladies often don't get the raises that they think they deserve or move up the chain is because they don't speak up for themselves. So now, because that research is out there, and I'm sure that if you go to any type of women's conference, they're going to quote that same survey, study, statistic, whatever it was, and say you got to speak up for yourself. So you have to develop this demeanor, put on a power suit, right? Think about the debates between with Hillary Clinton and now Kamala Harris. Um, they're told what to put on as far as clothing. What's going to make them look feminine yet powerful. So so yeah, you have to have that type of energy, and you have to know when to put it on, when to put it off. And but I probably can't be the best at telling you what that is from a man's perspective. Looking at it, when you see it, when the woman is coming. And I think that there's always this thing about coming off as being assertive but not a bitch, right? There's that thing, because guys don't have to worry about that, right? You can come off as being an a-hole as a guy, but you're still getting respect. And do you really have that level of respect? Does a woman really have that level of respect? That's a different question. Um, so that's, those are my thoughts, those are my opinions, right? So you got to be, I think you can work on it if you came from the background of being overly aggressive, overly dominant, or as far as women in your family, and you want to take that into the workplace. It's going to be a difficult. You probably fit right in, quite honestly. But then if you want to take it off when you want to be around a guy, particularly a very masculine type of presenting guy. But if you don't mind that, and you don't mind a kind of a guy who's more quiet, shy, beta-ish, if you don't mind that, then there is no issue. But if you really are tired, exhausted, and as I did the paper the other day, not paper, well, I discussed a number of papers the other day in one of my videos about what was I talking about? The papers on hugging and kissing and touching. The John Gray, that whole video. I can't. The title is escaping me right now. But as I talked about that, right, you really have to kind of just. I completely lost my train of thought. People walking by me here. Completely lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought, and I don't know where I was going with that. So, that's crazy. So, I just stopped the video and check it out. We're like, what was I talking about? People are walking by me, and it kind of distracted me. So I'll put a bow on this puppy here. So you can work on your masculinity, in becoming more feminine, I think, It doesn't have to be a performance if you really mean it. Don't fake it. Don't be yourself. But if you really want to, quote unquote, rest in your femininity, but you don't know how, you're gonna have to work on it. You might have to hire a coach, and you're gonna have to really learn to take valued assessments about yourself. And that's something that I'm noticing a lot of people don't really have the ability to do. You gotta hire. I think that people gotta hire somebody, accountability coach, life coach, to really help them get over some stuff. Because I don't think that everybody has it within to do it, and you need somebody else to assess you. Again, if this is not an issue for you, then it's not an issue. If you like a more type, simple, beta-ish kind of guy, there was a show that I was watching. Actually, it was the Boom Pop show. One of the very, very few episodes I've ever seen of that. This one tall girl was like, "Listen, well, she wasn't that tall, but she said that she wanted some guys shorter than her. She wanted to be in that dominant position. You got to be good with a guy you got to be good with a guy who's good with that. But if you want a different outcome, you got to put on for a different experience. So you got to put a different experience in order to get a different outcome. So if you want something different, you're tired. Oh, here's what I started to say about the show that they did about John Gray and the guy, Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus, right? There's a lot of stress that's going on within ladies, and they don't know why, right? So we talked about the studies that were going on in Sweden and the Netherlands, and et cetera, et cetera. Even in this country, where more ladies are working, but yet they are suffering from different psychosomatic problems, stomach problems, fatigue, depression. They got to take medicine, because it's difficult for them to work in the workplace and to put on this front. I'm talking about fronting and putting on performance. They find it difficult to put that on, or to maintain it for a long time. So there is a thing. Men and women are not the same. Men and women are not the same. We react and act differently in different situations. And and jobs cause stress. They cause stress to men, and we all deal with it differently and have to develop and work on different coping mechanisms, coping skills. And so I know that's well, it is what it is. I mean, it's the research isn't going anywhere. I know that they don't, some things people don't like and all this, but it is what it is. So let me just say that let me end this off with, you can change. If you were raised in a matriarchy, gynocracy, or gynarchy, you can make some changes, and just make sure that you're doing them for the right reason, not because you want a man or want a husband, but you want to change internally for your own self health, mental health, whatever. You can, if you find that this way of that you have been living is causing you issues, pains, problems, anxiety, depression, because you have to feel like you have to perform a certain way in order to get things in the world, but secretly you want to go home and just relax and just sip tea and just be this feminine woman. I think that's a good reason to change, but not because you want to attract the attention of some man, because that's going to wear off eventually. It's going to wear off. It's going to wear off. So we got to be honest about that. If you are being abused, or you run into an abusive guy who wants to take advantage of you, or if you're at the grocery store and you come off as more demure and more accommodating, or you're at the you sometimes. I was at this place the other day. Right? And I wasn't happy, and I wasn't happy with the service. And the young lady I was with, she was like, "Let's go back and talk to him." I'm like, "Listen, it's going to start an argument," and I didn't want to start. I don't want to start an argument. I did not want to start an argument. You gotta pick your battles, and picking your battles sometimes as a woman, can make you look weak, and sometimes as a guy can make you look weak. It can't. And so when is that thing? I think you got to pick. Where is that line? You got to pick. There's a time to fight and there's a time not to fight. And I tell the story oftentimes. I have issues with customer service. My daughter's at my house one day, and she's just listening to me going back and forth with customer service. When I got the phone, she's like, "You chose violence today." I'm like, yeah. Sometimes you got to wake up and choose violence. Sometimes Sometimes you have to wake up and choose violence. Um, you got to know when to pick the battles. Is it worth winning? You might win the battle, but what did you really gain? You know, and I could have gone back and argued with this guy and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I was doing this cost benefit analysis, but what am I going to gain from this? So, you know, so you gotta just because you think that you're right and all this kind of stuff, you gotta time and experience and understanding. If you think you can go into every place and cause battles, cause fights, cause arguments, overturn tables, call the manager, and act like a Karen all the time is going to get you someplace. It's going to get you on a YouTube video, and not in a good way. So you gotta pick your battles. And sometimes you got to go in there and say, listen, okay, today's the day, and this is a hill, quote unquote, worth falling on, worth dying on. Right? This is it, and I'm not gonna back down. And you got to know when those are. Time, experience, and all that will tell you. But if you got to battle all the time, everything's an argument. Everything, I'm never gonna get taken advantage of. I'm never gonna let anybody do this to me. Those are all traumatic experiences, traumatic reactions, post-traumatic stress from bad experiences we saw our parents grow up with. I'm totally convinced that people, in particular, when we talk about black women's attitude, let me just put it out there. We talk about black women's attitude. It is nothing more, or not nothing more, but it is one of the things that it is a reaction to seeing our parents and our grandparents being taken advantage of, or them telling us this is how you act, and we don't know the difference between knowing when to select a battle and when not to select a battle. And that is an important, essential component, because if you fight 100% everything all the time, we got to fight for this, fight for that, fight for this, fight for that. I'm not saying some things aren't worth fighting for. I'm not saying that. Sometimes you got to go in there and do it. But everything's a battle. Everything's a challenge. The food is never cooked correctly when you go to a restaurant. They always did this. Somebody's always taking advantage of me. It might be you. You might have the issue. You always waking up and having a bad day and this, that, and the other. You're always in a battle, always in a fight, always in a grind, every day, all the time. And listen, I do believe that we have the socialization process within ourselves. And I go whenever I meet a young black woman and she's got natural hair, I always tell her, I love your hair. And I did it the other day when I was at the doctor's office. She her complete demeanor. Now I don't know what she presented like. I'm linking this to attitude, femininity and attitude. And she had a short bob, as a matter of fact. She had a short natural bob. Well, I don't know bob, but it was short and natural. So I always tell women when I see that, I like your hair. And her whole demeanor changed. Now I don't know what she was like before. Obviously I got there and all this, but I could see her gestures, her body language changed. That's what I mean. So listen, I think that we got to be part of a symbiotic process of positively reinforcing behaviors that we want to see. And if all the men, and particularly black men that she met in that day, would all told her she loved her hair, they all did that. If you do that to every single black woman you see, just tell them you love your hair. If you're into natural hair, if you're the type of dude that's into natural hair, you see a black woman, short, long, whatever. If it's natural, you tell them you like it. If we all did that, it would reverse course. We are in a symbiotic relationship. I don't even know if that's the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. Right? I'm helping you, you're helping me. Right? So this idea that we're just so disconnected and this, that, and the other. So we got to fix that. We got to fix that. So those are my thoughts. So try to be the change that you want to see. So it's not your fault of being taken advantage of from a femininity perspective. Sometimes you do have to hold your ground. Sometimes you do have to stand up for yourself, and other times you should let things go. If you come from that environment where everything's a battle, you got to check that. It's not the way to be. everything can't be a battle. Your food is never cooked correct. You always got, every time you go to a restaurant, you got to send it back. Every single time. Maybe you're just too picky. And and you just, and like, as I started to say, it's just a post-traumatic syndrome of just responses and reactions because you don't want to be taken advantage of, because you saw your parents taken advantage of, you saw your grandparents being taken advantage of, you saw your aunts, cousins, everybody around you was just being taken advantage of. Everybody, and listen, some environments are really like that. Some environments, I get it. I mean, my grandfather, they grew up in a different time, and if you still are in some place in the country where this is, they still try to get one over on people, after a while, it becomes annoying. it can become annoying. So, all right. So this is long enough. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you give me a like, a subscribe. Would be even better. Subs and likes, but at least a like. It's not going to cost you anything. Just hit the thumbs up button. I would really appreciate it. If there's anything you else want me to talk about, make sure you hit me in the email. And until next time, much love and peace.